Hi, my name is Lena. I was born in Toronto, but I've also lived in Boston, Hong Kong, and I currently live in Shanghai. I've been doing art for most of my life, but I only started taking it really seriously in high school. But art's not the only thing I like to do. I also want to study developmental psychology alongside fine arts in college. Even though I really liked art, I knew I didn't want to only focus on art. So I knew Brown had the open curriculum, which lets you concentrate on a certain field of study, but then also lets you take different sort of classes without worrying too much about if it fits into your requirements or about grades either. I moved around a lot in my life. I moved around to 4 different countries, so it was kind of hard for me to form an identity. And I think as teenagers too, it's really hard to kind of identify your place in the world and what you want to do. Psychology and art really forced me to understand the deeper influences in my life. Psychology, obviously, in the way that we understand our childhood and how it influences us, but also there's a common saying every artwork you make is a self-portrait, because you unconsciously show the different influences in your life, and they'll show up in your artwork and they'll tell you a lot about your personality, even though you don't intentionally do it, right? So I think both of those things really forced me to think about who I am, my place in the world, and the things I really wanted and needed to do. So that's why I liked combining both of them, and also why I like studying those things. It definitely helped me a lot artistically. I learned a lot about anatomy, especially with using different forms of materials and different forms of art. I really experimented with pastels. I tried paper sculptures too, and I tried oils. Those are all things I never really knew anything about before I came to Oogie. They also really forced me to think about the kind of art I make and the meanings behind it. As much as art is just for fun, it's also, you have to have the deeper nuances in it to tell a deeper story, right? We can't just draw whatever we want. They really encouraged me to think deeper about the meanings of art, the things I want to display, and that stuff also helped me think deeper about who I am and the kind of art I want to make and what it means to me. A lot of my artwork is focused on combining psychology and art. Again, I think all artworks are sort of a reflection of who we are in an underlying way. So I try to focus on a lot of stuff that interested me about psychology, about human nature and the things we do, trying to portray those ideas in my art, and also things that I've learned about myself inside of my art too. So the first artwork is called A Family Dinner. It's ink on paper, and it was inspired by a family dinner I had with all of my extended family a couple of years back. But after recalling the entire dinner with my family, I couldn't remember the name or the faces of a single person there, despite the fact that I remembered the dinner happening and I remember what we ate. So this artwork is sort of displaying the instability of memory. So as you start from the bottom, the perspective and the people and the sizes start to shift and change. They start growing large and then small, and then the table starts to transform into a linear mess. So I wanted to display how in each scenario, every time I recalled the memory, it shifted and the people there shifted, even though I could remember very intricate details. The entire scene itself is distorted. So I have a lot of details in the food I ate and the people there, but all of the memories are irregular and transform with each time I remember it. My second artwork is called Iridescence. It's acrylic on paper, and it's inspired by the time I first moved to Hong Kong. I live right next to a big tree with pigeons, and a lot of times I would find dead pigeons in the sewerways, which disgusted me. And when I first moved, I really hated Hong Kong with all of my heart. I hated moving, and I hated walking across dead pigeons across right in front of my apartment. It's supposed to be an initially grotesque scene, of course, the dead pigeon and the bugs. But if you look closely, the bugs and the pigeon and the Hong Kong buildings all sort of have a reflective, iridescent surface. I'm trying to display the beauty within the things we hate, even though discussing pigeons and beetles and my first impression of Hong Kong were full of hate. The longer I stared at it and the longer I lived there, the longer I grew to appreciate the people around me and the environment around me. And I started, after moving away from Hong Kong, I missed it so much. So I wanted to show that hidden beauty within the things that initially disgust us. The next artwork is called Sums of a Whole. It's acrylic on canvases. It's 4 canvases, and it's a series of self-portraits. It's inspired by the saying, "The whole is greater than the sum of its parts." So each canvas and each self-portrait is displaying a certain aspect of my personality, like cautiousness and irritability. These are the kind of things that I feel are like the worst parts of myself, the parts I don't want to show to everyone, but when I do, I sort of like overthink those aspects of myself. But as the saying goes, I know like myself, like the whole is greater than any of my worst aspects or my worst memories. Also, like I wanted a bit of linear movement, so as you go from one canvas to the next, even though my emotions shift and they're all pretty like aggressive or negative, I wanted to show that journey of self-reflection as I start to realize like I know I'm more than the worst parts of me. Next one is coping, and it's a collage piece, so it's a combination of Copic markers and cutouts from magazines. This is a pretty chaotic scene, and it's inspired by the Freudian coping mechanisms. I didn't include all of them, but the animal motifs, each of them represent a certain coping mechanism. So the ostriches in the background that sort of like dig their head underground are denial. Our first initial instinct to when we have a problem is just to not look at it and pretend it's not there. I also have displacement, when all the different like rabbits and cats are chasing each other, and when the stag is fighting like a tree. Displacement is the coping mechanism when we sort of like don't look at the source of our anger and instead choose to like put it or displace it onto others. So all the animals are chasing each other or fighting something without looking at the real source of their anxiety, which is of course the animal chasing before them, right? And I also have a few bees on there, show like the hive mind mindset, all the bees thinking together, and it's supposed to show projection, so we kind of think everyone else thinks the same way as we do, as a way to kind of like release our anxiety. We feel everyone else is anxious. All these coping mechanisms are nuanced, but usually they make us feel a lot worse than we really do without actually confronting the problem. So I wanted to create like this chaotic, like really colorful, yet like somewhat like hard to understand scene to kind of represent those coping mechanisms and the feeling we get when we use them. Divided is actually one of the first pieces I made at Oogie, and it's also one of the ones I'm most proud of. It's a charcoal and collage piece, so I have charcoal, it's a charcoal self-portrait, but I also have a bit of magazine cutouts and some like other materials put in there. It's folded into the shape of a fortune teller, or like those cootie catchers, the ones I had in school. And it's called Divided because I wanted to show like the different aspects of myself. A lot of times when I move around, I kind of like get new personality that I show different people. And for different people, I act a different way. So I wanted to show like the divided parts of my personality by putting myself in that cootie catcher. And as you unfold it, or as you sort of move it, you would see different parts of myself, the different collages, and my face would be like somewhat covered by different like more colorful parts versus like more serious parts. And I want to show like that ever transforming aspect of my personality. For everyone who's applying to colleges, I think it's really important to remember the college application process can be really stressful because we kind of feel it's like the end all, like it's everything we've worked for. And a lot of us put a lot of our self-esteem like on the college process, which can be really like detrimental too. I think like I did too, like a lot of us really want to go to a really good school because it has a good name, and we have like one school that we really want to go to. And like I know it's easy for me to say that because I got into a really good school, but like don't do that because you end up disappointed even if you do get in. There's when you put so much like hope into a school, you inevitably get disappointed. So like have faith in yourself, have confidence in yourself, and I promise you will go to a good school. I decided to make a portfolio not only because I knew I wanted to do art and I was really interested in fine arts and I wanted to continue that in college. I knew like a lot of the colleges I would be applying to would be getting a lot of applicants, so I knew having a portfolio would kind of show my original thinking and would kind of give me an edge and make me stand out among the other college applicants. I think with a portfolio, get started as early as you can because art takes so much longer than an essay does, and especially because like all of your friends will be making essays, but not all of your friends will be doing portfolios, so you won't have as much of a support group. So start as early as you can. It was really nice for me to work with Oogie because I had like a really set schedule. I came in on the weekends and I worked for a few hours. That was really helpful. Work regularly, even if it's not something you like. If you experiment and try out different ideas, like colleges will appreciate whatever you make. Of course, they're not expecting professional art from you. They want to see that you're working with different materials and that you have a passion for art and you have a vision. So again, like, have faith in yourself, have faith in your ideas. You will feel really frustrated. Art is like such a long and complicated process, but like keep going, keep strong, and rely on the support from people around you.